Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.
I'm back.
Alhamdulillah. I told them yesterday we'll work on it. We'll bring him back.
After missing yesterday's program, yeah.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.
Chaliye. Alhamdulillah. First day. How was your first day?
Alhamdulillah. You can feel it. You can feel the blessings of Ramadan. Allah is showering it upon us. Alhamdulillah.
I mean, for somebody like yourself who's in and out of the masjid all day long anyway, and who's always teaching, preaching for the whole day, when it comes to your Ramadan, what changes do you actually make that you feel that Ramadan's arrived?
There's less teaching. I'm actually not teaching anything right now.
Okay.
So I've put aside any teaching whatsoever. And I spend my days reading tafsir, reading books. And it's calm. The chaos of my life that I'm sure many of you have seen, it's not there in Ramadan.
In Ramadan?
Yeah. Even in the mosque, when you go in, there's more people than normal, but it's just calm. Everyone's either into a spiritual vibe or just too tired to do anything because of the fast. But alhamdulillah, I feel it. I can feel it already. I can feel it, alhamdulillah.
I mean, because for the general viewer, so the attendance to the masjid is a lot more.
Yeah, 100%.
They're attending 5 times a day where they were not doing outside Ramadan. Their recitation of Quran or whatever, they increase that.
Yeah.
Somebody like yourself who already is in that routine. So what touch do you give to your spirituality to really feel that Ramadan vibe?
Wallahi, just whatever I was doing anyway, just more. That's it. Whatever I was doing anyway, more.
Okay. Shadi? By the way, let me introduce Shadi.
Yeah.
Moeed Shah, mashallah. He was with us last year. An active member from our Hafiz class at MCM. And today's subject, and the reason why I've particularly wanted Shadi to get on, I'm not sure, people can't really see behind all the jackets and stuff he's wearing, but Shadi's quite built, and he works on his health and keeps himself fit. One experience was, when we took a group to Alton Towers. What was that thing you were doing? Where on those bars?
The planche. So the planche
What's
is
it called?
a planche. It's like plank, but with a CHE at the end.
Okay, planche.
So planche is a calisthenics exercise that's used.
That's what you do, calisthenics.
Calisthenics, yeah. So calisthenics is basic bodyweight exercises. It's an alternative to heavy weights at the gym.
Yeah.
For example, running. It incorporates a lot more of your body weight. So many people, they can do a lot of weight when they do bench press or squats, but when they do their own body weight, they struggle to do a few.
Mm-hmm.
So
Shadi gave us a demo at Alton Towers. This was like we were walking into Nemesis, wasn't it?
I think so.
Yeah, it was Nemesis. Yeah, last turn before you actually get inside where the rows are being made, and Shadi gets on like that, and I'm like, wow, what's he doing?
So the grip is like this. It's
Yeah.
like you hold the ball like this, and the main aim of the game is to look as if you're putting all your strength onto the hand. So the strength that's needed is you need dense muscle for that. It's not something you'd be able to do after a few tries. I mean, it looks cool, pretty much.
Yeah, it does look cool.
So
So knowing that background, and last night when we were discussing subject for today's podcast, it was going to link in from yesterday's, which was what do we want to take from Ramadan? And an aspect of that is our health.
Yes.
There's a spiritual aspect of it, and then there's a physical aspect as well. Ramadan and Islam incorporates both the spiritual and the physical. Yesterday we discussed more over the spiritual.
Definitely.
And you guys went in quite hard, man.
Yeah.
I did not see a single smile yesterday.
yeah, I guess.
And I was sat there. I was sat behind screen. And I'm like, yeah, these guys got in hard.
Yeah, I could feel that as well. I think, after a long day, and we've done 20 Taraweeh after a long time. I don't think many of us have stood 20 Rakat, so yesterday we just
For a while,
knackered.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. So today's discussion is going to be based, around health,
Yes.
Yeah.
and particularly using Shaji's background. He's quite conscious of his health, calories intake, and yes, we could have a health professional come in and give all the figures and all the numbers. But I thought rather bringing somebody young at his age who's conscious of his health, which is quite rare, isn't it? At the moment, it's like whatever comes was kaijo, tidanu. You say that.
That's a good saying.
Yeah, kaijo. Just keep eating, tidanu, just increase your stomachs.
Yeah.
But Shadi, at this
Mashallah.
age, Shadi, might be asking on screen as well. How old are you?
19.
19.
I don't look it, but yes.
But for his age, mashallah, he's keeping himself fit. And he's
Looks double
conscious of
that.
these things.
It's
So,
about 30.
in Ramadan, let's start with the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi
Sallallahu Alaihi
Wasallam,
Wasallam.
who is the Uswa Hasana.
Allahu Akbar.
Yeah. Our role model in this dunya and in the hereafter.
Mhm.
What was his diet? Hamza?
I mean, we know from our Prophet ﷺ, at that time especially, looking at the climate he lived in, things like meat was a rare commodity anyway. So most of his diet was actually what you would call in modern day terms a vegetarian diet, in modern day terms.
I heard a scholar say that he was pro-vegan. Is that a statement we can make?
Yeah, why not? Why not?
But not the exactly vegan
Yeah.
the way we understand in the West today, whereas there can't be any animal, any contact with animal. But I understand where he was coming from.
Yeah. I think as a Muslim, there's a level of veganism within a Muslim, which is what, anytime you consume anything with meat, there's a fikr, there's a concern. Is it halal? Is it ethically sourced or whatever? So there's a level of veganism we should all have, is thinking about the meat that you consume. And as we know, our Prophet ﷺ very rarely consumed meat. It was a luxury. It's a major luxury out there. And even the meat that they had access to is not like the meat we're having.
Yeah, it wasn't lean. type
It
of
wasn't lean,
protein.
no.
It was,
It's camel meat.
Yeah, whatever you could find was considered
Mhm.
valuable at the time. But even today, if we're talking about protein and meats, there's many different ways of getting all the necessities in without having to go down the lean meat route. Because we have things like protein shakes, which aid the protein intake that you're meant to have. That's recommended, for example. And there's different purposes. Like people will take the meat that we're talking about, or the protein in general, for different purposes. But even for someone who's not into fitness, someone who's not looking to lose weight, gain muscle, it's always a good idea to have that balanced type of diet. I mean, that's Islam.
Okay, so protein shakes, are they really the replacement for meat? Does it really fit the bill?
I think they wouldn't replace meat because... Have you ever tried protein shake? Maybe once or twice.
So when I was at uni,
Yeah. Oh,
so
As is in the Hertfordshire days.
half a share. So friends were taking protein shakes.
okay.
I think I had a sip here or there, but when you actually go out to buy and purchase protein
Yeah.
shakes and then you're actually making them every evening,
hmm
never done that stuff.
So the reason it's recommended is because nowadays meat, even back then, similar case, it's expensive. So to accommodate the price for it, but not only that, it makes it easier to consume. Like nowadays, you need someone to cook that meat for you. And in the
Yeah.
world we live in, where everything is so fast paced,
Yeah.
Mm.
it's easy to put in a few scoops, milk, water, whatever you prefer, and done.
But that's like a purely protein intake, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
You're not getting anything else.
Nothing
Well,
else
you do
really.
gain. I guess there is nutritional value to it, but I will come on to this inshallah. Nutritional foods that I recommend eating during Ramadan, especially.
Have you seen on social media now? There's people who just saying eat red meat. You get those really ripped guys on the videos who are just scrunning. Even some of them in raw meat. Seen a guy who's eating raw liver. Have you seen that?
So that guy has
And
been called out.
is
from
it-
the
is that real?
community, for faking or allegedly showing the side to the.
You know what I'm talking about? Bald head,
Yeah, bald
beard.
head, big beard,
Yeah, yeah.
jacked. But what he didn't reveal to anybody is that he's actually on different types of medication and.
Steroids.
For example, yes, and
Wow.
he's apparently made an apology video to keep it short, but he's not really apologized for it. He just said, "I can see why you're upset with me." That type of apology.
So it's not real.
So his whether he eats the lean meat or the raw meat or not is a separate issue. The issue is, does it make you look like that? No, not at all. Eating raw meat like that, even if you were to go crazy at the gym, it's unachievable. And if you look at the age that is at, naturally your body will lose the muscle quantity over time. And as a younger person, person from 19, 20 years old, it's very easy to look muscular compared to when you're 30 or 40. So at his age, the muscle that he says that he has got from just eating this type of meat and maintaining a healthy, gym diet and so on, it's what you would call fraud. It's frauding. It's you're deceiving people from their parents' side, saying, "Look at me, just eat this," and then you would sell products like this type of advertising, false advertising, and ultimately it's deception.
So the whole thing's a show.
Well,
It's
a lot
not
of people
real.
just buying that stuff now, yeah.
Well, people were until he got called out for it.
I heard there was a trend on TikTok where people are just getting raw packets of meat and biting it, following this guy's.
I mean, from what I know about meats and nutrition, so we're talking about the nutritional value
of meat, yeah.
One of the questions was, how is it that you can maintain a healthy diet during Ramadan? Because you're fasting so many hours and you're trying to think of ways to incorporate healthy foods. The first thing is fruit. Fruit is it's got such high nutritional value. We look at nuts, of course. If you're not allergic, I don't recommend anybody, but if you're fine to eat it, a few cashew nuts will do, a few almonds. And the thing with nutritional food is that, it's interesting you mentioned spirituality and physicality. I think they're both intertwined together.
Mm.
Yeah,
and the reason I think that is because if you ever notice how sometimes you feel sluggish, you feel slow, and it's often affected by your diet. And I think the dieting is something that's often overlooked during Ramadan, especially in Asian households. Up in here we tend to go for pakore, samosa. Even in Arab households, they tend to go for similar items. And the issue,
fried stuff, yeah.
A lot of fried stuff. So I wouldn't say cut it off.
Ideally, really, families go for the fried stuff for the taste.
Yeah, of course.
Not really for the nutritional values.
No, of course not.
And so because you have starved yourself for a while.
Yeah.
It's a treat, isn't it?
Yeah. On the topic of meat, what would you say? Should somebody cut red meat out of their life totally? Is there a downside to that? Is there something within red meat that a human being needs, nutritionally speaking, and
within
from that
red
angle?
meat? Personally, I'm not sure about the answer. So, like I said, my science, or the type of science that I specialize in, is what you call bro science.
Okay.
It's a very thing online. So
bro science.
Bro science. It's the science acquired from friends, from studies online, but it's never what you call.
It's not academic.
Academic, exactly. It's more of a. It works. Bro science works, but there are some who take it to the extreme and say, "Do this and you'll get this." It's not. It's never the case. There's always.
It's experience based.
Yeah, experience based, exactly. So with red meat specifically, I do have it in my diet occasionally, but the overall diet is, to maintain your fruits and veg, carbohydrates, protein, dairy intake, and some necessary fats that you need as well.
Basically everything.
But
Okay.
there's proportions and there's
in moderation.
In moderation.
In moderation.
And I think Islam in
Ramadan.
Ramadan.
Say it, man. Have everything, man.
Have everything as long as.
كلوا واشربوا هنيئا مريئا.
Yeah.
حتى يتبين لكم.
Yeah.
Allah.
The one thing I'd say about Ramadan, why Ramadan is so special, and I think most people overlook it, is that Ramadan teaches us to be moderate. This. I was looking at Hamza Yusuf's podcast about gluttony.
About
Gluttony. Gluttony is the act of overeating, and in Ramadan, it's what you call it's a vice to the virtuous act of fasting.
Yes.
It's an evil. It's
Wow.
the immoral side of fasting.
Because where you starve yourself for so many hours,
Exactly.
and now just within 5 minutes you're gonna have so much.
Exactly.
Defeats the purpose of all
Exactly.
that.
So it's like an oxymoron, a living oxymoron, and we see it today in the fasting life that we have. We're fasting so many hours. All of a sudden we go into iftar, everything done.
It's like I was listening to a sheikh on social media. Somebody was sharing his post on his WhatsApp. What's it called? Status. WhatsApp status. We end up spending the whole day thinking about the iftar itself.
so
Yeah, our mothers and sisters spend majority of the day cooking in the kitchen, when really this was the time that should have been spent on the musalla.
Mm-hmm.
And iftar was always meant to be very little.
Yeah.
And the prophetic teaching is that there's more emphasis on suhoor.
Yeah.
And not really on iftar.
Yeah.
Iftar, from my read on this subject, is just a date or two. Enough that you've had something, the throat becomes wet, your stomach feels like something's gone in, and then you move on. You go into your prayers, and you spend the night this way. And suhoor is when it's emphasized, look, have something, even if it's very little. The hadith says, take something at least. But really it highlights that suhoor is where a lot of your energy intake should have been.
Imam al-Ja'fari says suhoor is like qaylula. You sleep qaylula so you can stand in the night to pray, and you eat suhoor so you can stand in the day to pray.
Allah.
And when you spend the whole day in the kitchen, are we really getting the purpose, the maqsad of
yeah, I seen something on the internet. There's a lady, she's making samosas in preparation for iftar. And she said there's 7 people in her family, so she has to make at least 2 samosas for 7 people for a period of 30 days. So if you do that as a maths, Shah, I've got your phone out, what's the number of samosas she'd have to prepare?
That's 14 times about 10, 110, and that's 14, 140.
It's a
You're going to
ridiculous
420
number of samosas she had to prepare for Ramadan.
Mm-hmm.
So they probably got a stock of like 500 samosas
That's
before
crazy.
Ramadan came in.
Yeah.
They
I
put
was
it into
going to
the
mention,
fridge.
you talked about suhoor and how much quantity tends to be consumed. I think one of the issues is that many people, because they're so hungry, and actually it's interesting, during Ramadan, the whole point is not that one of the side effects and one of the effects of fasting during the day is to make you think about hunger. But it's interesting we mentioned this. There's actually this type of overconsumption that we have nowadays throughout the year, not just Ramadan. We look at it in terms of when people are.
That was the name you gave yesterday.
Hamza.
No. That was the name you gave yesterday. People that constantly eating too much. Something consumption. A fancy name you mentioned yesterday.
Excess consumption, maybe.
No. That was it'll come to mind.
Yeah.
Go on, what were you saying?
So with overconsumption, we're talking about how everybody has their different types of solace. Have you ever thought about when people are upset or depressed, they tend to eat a lot more? It's what we call binge eating. This is what gluttony is.
Comfort eating.
Comfort eating. And you take that comfort into food. But what's so interesting is that during Ramadan, we don't need a lot to fill our bellies. And that's evident because we've not had water. We've been dehydrated. Naturally, our stomachs are going to take a lot less food. And you realize after, what I tend to do is have, a kajur, a date, and break my fast with a glass of water or a protein shake or whatever it is. And after that, you usually feel like, oh, okay, I've been hydrated now. And once your brain is hydrated, you can then think, what can I pick from here? But usually what we see in the masjids, what we see at home, your plate is pre-made. Everything.
And you've got to finish it.
You need to finish everything on your plate, as our parents teach us. Don't leave anything on your plate.
No.
Don't waste anything on your plate. Actually, I think it's a Turkish saying or Japanese saying, the amount of rice left on your plate is the amount of years that it will take for you to die. So they recommend not to leave any rice on there.
And in our tradition, it's like you don't know which part of the food has all the barakah.
So you're going to scrub the whole thing to find it.
Exactly, yeah.
Because
this
there's
is
a
what
possibility that you actually miss out all the barakah.
Yeah. So I think what's missing is, in terms of what we do for iftar and suhoor, is what I'd recommend personally is, if you're looking to maximize, make something of a diet during Ramadan. You mentioned yesterday, Ramadan is the pivoting point for us. So if we're talking about that, we should look at Ramadan in terms of maximizing it, not just for spirituality, but for our emotional state and our spiritual state and our physical state. And physically we can do that, and it will tie into spirituality later, but physically we can do that by eating little. We already recommended
at iftar,
at iftar. Eat little at iftar. Our Ustad Hafiz Moeed tends to go for a bowl of fruit mix,
Fruit
chart, as we say, and a glass of milkshake. That's it. And a date or water or whatever. And he's off for Taraweeh.
With Hufaz it's different.
With Hafaz it is different.
It is different.
Yeah, I recommend.
Because you can't risk it as Hafiz.
It's also because of the gas that goes up. And I'd recommend as well, the reason I recommend eating a little is because if you're going for Taraweeh, we've all come across those incidences where we have someone left to our right.
It's crazy because the time from Iftar to Taraweeh, by the time you get to Taraweeh, that's when your actual digestion is actually been taking place.
Exactly.
So that's when all the gurgles and the funny noises come up.
And Isha, that's a good 2 hours. Whereas in previous years, it was only like an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah, it was tight previously.
It's a lot more. So if you had a big healthy meal, and then you've come into Taraweeh, and on the Musalla, Allahu Akbar, and then you're letting them rip.
Yeah.
Bro, man don't want to stand next to you then, do they?
Yeah, and the Samir would have to step up and take over your place. But the reason I say is have little for iftar. It's literally because of that window as well you're talking about. Iftar to suhoor is less than what you'd have from suhoor to iftar. The other way around. So what's always recommended is have little for iftar. Once you get to suhoor, scran if you'd like. But even for suhoor, what we need to understand is there are foods that will naturally make us more dehydrated than other foods.
Salty food.
One of these. And
Salty
food.
foods.
Question. Fruits, I know they're high in sugars as well.
Yes, in fructose.
So if somebody's having a big bowl of fruit, isn't that a quick rush of so many sugars coming in?
It would be a quick rush, yes. So the reason it's...
Is that good or bad?
It would depend on who the person is. So if the person tends to have diabetes or fluctuating blood sugar levels, anything that's sweet, be it fruit, being anything else, should always be recommended to minimize or consume, but don't go too hard. And then what happens is diabetics usually they have medicines to take after that to inhibit the the rise of the sugar. And what's always recommended is for anybody. So I'm saying for like a fruit mix would be good because of the natural sugar and the minerals and it's all what you call nutritional value that you get. But for anyone, if you're saying it's good or bad, of course it would be good. But it would depend case by case. If you're someone who cannot rely on sugar for a long time, I mean, most people wouldn't be fasting in that first place. There's people with hypoglycemia, I think, hyperglycemia as well.
And people do need to make the effort as well.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
I mean, we know so many people in the community, just because they are their own meds.
Yeah.
They're not even going to attempt to keep a fast. This is problematic.
Mm-hmm.
And I always put my mother as an example.
Yeah.
She's over 60 now. She's on all the meds that most Indo-Pacs are on, the high blood pressure and the cholesterol, and they all come together as a package anyway.
Yeah.
So she's on the ball.
Yeah.
Doctors have said a good 15 years back, you can't fast.
Mm-hmm.
Every day she fasts. Every month, every year she's fasting. So throughout Ramadan for the last few years, again every year she's at least able to keep 25 plus fast in each month.
Oh. Yeah.
And which her peers don't even attempt.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You also get.
And they're on the same meds.
I've also heard cases of people who are carrying pregnant ladies and stuff like that. Just because they're pregnant, straight away they decide, I'm not going to fast. I don't want to risk the fetus and nutrition to the baby or whatever. And then you find stories of Sayyidina Abdul Qadir Jilani, where the fetus himself is fasting. He's born fasting. He doesn't eat till Iftahar. He doesn't take milk till Iftahar.
These are exceptional cases in the entire Ummah. But I think just to touch on that, the fatwa does mention that a pregnant woman should not be fasting unless she's confident it's not going to affect or directly impact the fetus.
Mm.
She has to make that judgment.
Yeah. But she'll have to try the first time.
I personally know a case where a sister was fasting during Ramadan that actually led on to a miscarriage.
Wow.
So not until you have experiences of such, and people have gone through that, do you then appreciate why the Sharia is dictating in a particular way.
Mm.
So if you know that it can, based on your health and prior experiences, it will have impact, then a pregnant woman should not be fasting. And it's not for her, she's exempt anyway. Now especially, let's say she's in her last trimester of her labour, of her pregnancy, she should not be fasting at all. If it's early days, first trimester, it's really her judgment, her call.
There was a question actually I've seen somewhere. There's tablets that women take to delay their period or their menstruation cycle. What's the hukum for a person doing that in Ramadan because they want to fast the full Ramadan?
I mean, ulama have given ijazah for that. Even
if it caused detrimental, impact on your health generally. Because I heard it has many negative effects to have those pills on the
I think those effects will stay for a month or two, and then the body and its hormonal cycles go into its normal routine.
Oh, okay.
But by disturbing that 1 month, I mean, because she wants to fast for the entire month, I think she'll get rewarded at least for trying hard. Similarly,
isn't it a concession from Allah? That
it is a concession from Allah.
Allah has given you this, and He's reduced. You don't have to fast. You don't have to pray.
Yes, and why not use it? And similarly, when women are traveling to Haramain, you're on Hajj and Umrah. Now you've paid £15,000. This year Hajj is £15,000 per person.
Wow.
15k you put on the table to go to Hajj. Yeah. Comes to Hajj days and you're on your menses. That's like your 15k going to ruins.
Yeah.
So for somebody like that, in order to work around it, takes those pills to delay her menses or her cycle. What am I saying? Yes, guys.
It's important you mentioned cycles. Speaking of cycles, I think there is one vicious cycle that we are not even for Muslims, but everybody in general is, trapped in. And I think that vicious cycle is we look for alternatives. What I'm talking about is taking comfort in things that are temporary, and they bring temporary satisfaction. Yeah. As humans, we're never satisfied anyway. It's part of our, DNA. Mm-hmm. But there is one thing that can satisfy you, fully. The reason I think, one of the discussions on why people who are depressed, people who are emotionally unstable, take solace in food. It may be video games, other types of addictions, alcohol, gambling. These are all what you would call, temporary solaces, temporary things that people take comfort in, and they realize it falls through, and they look for another thing, and then they move on to another thing. And this is what we call, trying to find something to fill the hole in the heart. And I think that hole can only be filled by Allah. In fact, we have the ayah in the Quran, أَلَا بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَطْمَئِنُّ الْقُلُوبُ. The only one that can, verily the hearts will find peace in the remembrance of Allah. And so, taking solace in all these things will only lead to more pursuit. And we are the pursuit of happiness on the podcast, are we not? So how can you find that pursuit of happiness? Is by finding Allah, by finding God. It does not have to be, even I find that people who are monotheistic, people who believe in a God or something out there, they tend to be a lot happier in life anyway, because they know that there is this thing that is there to support them no matter what falls through. People depend on each other. As humans, we're not dependable at all, but Allah is there for us. What was the ayah? وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عَنِّي وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ. I am close.
We discussed that ayah today, and we said the demonstration that Allah is giving in this ayah of how much He actually loves His creation. He said, He didn't just say أُجِيبُ الدَّاعِي, He didn't just say أُجِيبُ الدَّعْوَةِ or أُجِيبُهُ إِذَا دَعَانِي. He said أُجِيبُ الدَّعْوَةَ الدَّاعِي إِذَا دَعَانِ. I respond to the calling of the caller when he calls. How much emphasis is in the ayah. And that's something that we would encourage the viewers, especially in Ramadan. Ramadan is the month of dua. Ramadan is the month of dua. That's why Allah sandwiched that verse with verses of siyam, of fasting.
Straight after it,
Before it, the previous two verses before it is all about fasting, and the verse that comes after it, أُحِلَّ لَكُمْ لَيْلَةَ الصِّيَامِ الرَّفَثُ إِلَى نِسَائِكُمْ, is about fasting as well. And we know from the hadith the three people whose dua isn't rejected. One of them is the fasting person, hatta iftir, until he gives.
There's actually a hadith that came to mind as well. Hadith on the community eating together, and I think this is what's so beautiful about Islam as well, is the fact that in our religion during Ramadan everybody's together. MashaAllah, we saw the masjid for the past 2 days, Taraweeh, full all the way to the brim, and you see people that you would never see at the masjid, but they're here for Ramadan. That's the community. That's what brings you together. In fact, the hadith that comes to mind is Wahshi ibn Harb reported, Ya Rasulullah, we are eating but we are not filled. And the Prophet ﷺ says, did you eat separately, individually? And they said yes. And they said, the Prophet ﷺ replied, eat your meals together, mention the name of Allah over it, and you will be satiated, you will be fulfilled. I think one of the blessings of Ramadan is that gratification. During Ramadan we feel grateful, and it's sad that it's a pivoting point, but it's sad that during the other months we're not as grateful. So
it's actually the third goal that Allah mentions on why He obligated fasting. He said لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ وَلِتُكَبِّرُوا اللَّهَ عَلَى مَا هَدَاكُمْ وَلَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ. That you gain the quality of shukr. And if you look at the objective of shaitan, what's his main objective that he lays down in the Quran is not actually even kufr. It is kufr, but kufran al-ni'mah. وَلَا تَجِدَنَّ أَكْثَرَهُ. What's the ayah? He said ثُمَّ لَآتِيَنَّهُمْ مِنْ بَيْنِ أَيْدِيهِمْ وَمِنْ خَلْفِهِمْ وَعَنْ أَيْمَانِهِمْ وَعَنْ شَمَائِلِهِمْ
وَلَا تَجِدُوا أَكْثَرَهُمْ شَاكِرِينَ.
That He wants to take away our quality of shukr. In fact, Allah gives that example in the ayah. ضرب الله مثلا قرية كانت آمنة مطمئنة يأتيها رزقها رغدا من كل مكان. Allah gives example of a town, safe, beautiful town. Rizq comes from every direction. رغدا من كل مكان. فكفرت بأنعم الله. But they had, not shown shukr in the favors of Allah, kufran ni'mah. فَأَذَاقَهُمُ اللَّهُ لِبَاسَ الْجُوعِ وَالْخَوْفِ بِمَا كَانُوا يَصْنَعُونَ. So Allah clothed them in what? In hunger, in fear, because of what they had done.
And what shaitan also does well is so in Ramadan there's the aspect of communal effort together. So whether it be in the form of Taraweeh, whether it be in the form of Jumu'ah, Iftahar, for example, you mentioned. Iftahars are full in masajid. That communal worship that we do together really goes a long way. And that's really what a lot of people, you mentioned mental health and people that have mental health issues. A lot of them find heal and find peace in the month of Ramadan. Because when you go to the masjid and you pick up it's also about those energy vibes, isn't it?
Yeah.
Energy bouncing off from each other in Ramadan. Particularly the month of Ramadan, when you're all stood there in Taraweeh, when you're all sat there having iftar together, and you're sharing that food.
Yeah.
That's the stuff that they're really yearning for.
Mm-hmm.
And Islam really does provide this type of solution. And if you look at the Messenger ﷺ's first address to the community of Medina, when he steps in Medina Munawwara, أطعموا الطعام أفشوا السلام وأطعموا الطعام وصلوا الأرحام صلوا بالليل والناس نيام تدخل الجنة بسلام. So we all are doing qiyam fil layl, and we're all feeding each other. And that's exactly what we're all doing, isn't it? Moving towards تدخل الجنة بسلام.
I think there's one point that we've not discussed or not really emphasized on in terms of shukr and expressing gratitude, and it's this organized creation of dissatisfaction. I heard this on this podcast, and this individual who's talking to Sheikh Hamza Yusuf is saying that it was in a leaked document from General Motors. This was what was advised from this company in order to create sales. Actually, our whole economy, the economy of the world, is based on dissatisfaction. Tell me, iPhone 14, would it be successful if people weren't dissatisfied with their current phone?
So they have planned obsolescence within a product.
Exactly.
And that product will fail in certain areas, so that you want something else.
Exactly. This is not only the case with phones. This is the case with cars.
Everything.
This is the case with every single thing.
You become a slave to your own desires, isn't it?
Exactly.
وَمَنْ أَتْبَعَ نَفْسَهُ هَوَاهَا وَتَمَنَّى عَلَى اللَّهِ.
And I think what's important is that
the
our
ayah says
whole-
قُلْ مَتَاعُ الدُّنْيَا قَلِيلٌ.
Allah.
Yeah. So
And that's when we get too engrossed in that mata' of the dunya, the luxuries of the dunya. Allah's telling us again and again, it's qaleel, it's qaleel, it's qaleel. But yet, we still forget.
I think one thing that is that with the economy that we're talking about, that the whole economy is based on a lie. And I think this is why people are so miserable, because everything around them is a lie. That this whole economy is not based on justice, it's based on untruth, it's based on dissatisfaction. And the fact is that as Muslims, we are expressing gratitude. That's the reason we have 5 days of salah. We reflect and we take time to slow down. And I think Ramadan really brings everyone together and everything together. In terms of spirituality, physicality, emotional state, mental state. And it's important we talk about physicality and the effect on spirituality.
Even the sabr we show as a fasting person, it should continue in terms of gratitude outside of Ramadan. That's why we find the hadith of Al-Bukhari, الطاعم الشاكر كالصائم الصابر. The person who's not fasting but he shows gratitude is like the one who fasted with patience. So, we have a great opportunity here. This patience that we're demonstrating in Ramadan throughout our fast, to continue that, to pair that, to follow that up with gratitude even when we're not fasting. And that's the objective of fasting, and it make you feel for a moment what they're feeling, the people in need. There are so many people out there who don't have what we have.
Yeah. I think there's one thing as well is gratitude takes you out of the clouds and brings you back to earth. In the sense that you're in this state where you think, I'm so big and I have this left and right, until you lose it. And then when you express, it's funny that we only turn to Allah in times of need, and in times when we request that, Ya Allah, I have this illness, I have this financial issue. But then once we've overcome that problem, we don't turn to Allah.
This is addressed in Surah Al-Hajj.
وَمِنَ
النَّاسِ مَنْ يَعْبُدُ اللَّهَ عَلَى حَرْفٍ. There are some people that worship Allah ala harf, yani tarf, on the edge of things. فَإِنْ أَصَابَهُ خَيْرٍ. If goodness comes his way, اطمأن به. He has so much contentment with Allah and his iman. وَإِنْ أَصَابَهُ فِتْنَةٍ انقلب على وجهه. But if something bad comes, he turns back on his face. خسر الدنيا والآخرة. He's lost in this world, he lost in the akhirah. ذلك هو الخسران المبين. That's the greatest of loss.
It's like that student who only revises when it comes to exam period.
Yeah.
Throughout the year he's not going to revise, but he's living on the edge, isn't he?
Yeah.
Anyways.
So if we're looking at these figures about physicality and overeating, I've got a statistic here actually, according to the National Institute of Health now. Fast food caloric intake has increased 5-fold over the past 3 decades. Now, it's an amazing figure because so fast food is one of those things where, because there's no nutritional value, and because it's something that is, the nutritional value is so low in, it does not even fill us up, and we go back to it again and again and again, and this is the rope that these fast food chains have us on.
Even now, to buy a healthy meal.
At Iftahar,
Yeah.
a lot of the youngsters, that's probably, they're not gonna have a roti salad.
I would not recommend it. Fast
So
food.
what they rather do is an Uber, a Deliveroo,
Yeah.
and fast food's coming through
No.
through the door.
There's barakah in preparing things with your hands, and the fruit and the nutritional things that we have in life.
Mm.
It's not just the physical benefits that you get. There's mental benefits. We know that nutritional, things like almonds and nuts it gives you a boost in your cognitive functions. And actually, people who tend to overeat, or people who tend to indulge in these cravings and these fast food, are shown that over years they have, a loss of memory. They have loss of the ability to focus.
Yeah.
If you ever notice how people nowadays are so restless, and this also comes into the fact of social media as well, how nobody has an attention span anymore. Nobody really listens anymore.
But you're saying an element of that is the food that they consume.
Yeah, of course. Diet has one of the biggest effects on your mentality, on your spirituality as well.
It comes down to that thing that you're constantly craving an instant, on-demand, answer to your needs.
Yeah.
Satisfaction on demand all the time. That's what the fast food is. Whereas you'd have to wait for someone to cook a really healthy meal for you. That's another thing related to the economy now. If you wanted to go and buy a really healthy meal, it's costing you double, triple to just go and get a fast food meal as well. So you can see how you mentioning Shah the other day about those big corporations that are running the world.
Yes.
The oligarchs and all of these. Look how they've turned it, in the sense that they're creating lazy people, they're creating dumb people by making fast food even more accessible.
Yeah.
And going out and getting a decent healthy meal is so expensive.
Post COVID, do you not think fast food has actually gone up?
100%.
An example,
I think so.
see in our locality, the only one making a nice fried chicken was Miami's.
Yeah. For a while.
Now come down Stockport Road, you've got Shake Bees, you've got Rocco's, you've got Rajas. All these on Stockport Road, yeah?
Yeah.
Take a left onto Dickinson Road, you've got Vegas. Where else we got down this road?
Dean's.
You got Dean's.
Yeah.
You got Phillies in Chemo.
Yeah.
Oh, that's quite far up. Okay, so
Yeah.
I'd include that. All of these have come after COVID, and they're all making the exact same burger.
Yeah.
And every single one has got huge lines. And online orders are separate. And if you go to these places just before Iftahar, you've stood there for easily an hour.
Yeah.
And people are walking out with bags and bags and bags because the whole families are going to be having this. Once you've had that, are you really going to be wanting to get up and doing 2 rak'at of Taraweeh?
No.
There's another issue here as well. People think that, with what I'm eating, I'm still able to do my 20 rakats.
Yeah.
But the 20 rakats is not the objective. That's your bare minimum in Ramadan. That was what you had to do.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be preparing yourself to do more than what you had to do.
Yeah.
And that is something we want our viewers to try in this Ramadan. Go home and offer another, 8 or 4, even 2, whatever it is. Offer something else on top of your Taraweeh, because
In
Taraweeh is
fact,
the minimum.
This year Tahajud is so easy.
Yeah.
Because you do your Taraweeh, we come home for about 10:30. Yeah. Let's say 11. You have 4 hours to sleep.
Yeah.
Let's say you wake up for 3:15. Give yourself just 15 minutes. You're going to wake up for suhoor anyway. Wake up 10 minutes earlier. Just do 2 nafil. 4, make it 6 if possible. And then the dua at the time of Tahajjud. The Hadith describes that it's like the arrow that never misses its target.
Look at the opportunities at hand. You're a fasting person. You got your iftar dua. You're awake at Tahajjud time. Everyone's awake at Tahajjud time in Ramadan. You got that dua. You got the dua of Sahur.
You cannot miss in Ramadan.
Yeah, that's Sahari dua as well.
That's Sahari dua as well, yeah.
So, just blessings upon blessings.
I think if we're talking about Tahajjud, there's one question I guess a lot of people did have and do have now, with regarding to, let's say you're at university, let's say you're at school, let's say you have work, like many of us do. How would you structure your sleep routine around it? Because for many people, they have to be up early in the morning for work. It could be a 9 to 5 job, or it could be a lot earlier. Where I work, you have to be there for 7.
Oh, no.
It's one of these things where, so for example, for myself, I try to make as many holidays requests for Ramadan as I can, because I know that the sleeping routine does not necessarily favor the way that we live in this society. In other countries, it's different. Your society is structured around your religion.
There's an element of society structure, and there's also the altitude that we live in the UK, and the way constantly time is changing.
Yes.
In summer you've got longer days, in winter you've got shorter days.
So very hard to structure.
It's near impossible to have a routine and have istiqamah on one routine. I've shared it with brothers and friends before. Sheikh Ibrahim from Liverpool was mentioning one of the reasons why Anbiya, the awliya Allah, never came to these countries.
You can't pray here, man.
Is it true?
Yeah.
Are you talking about Ozair?
Yeah.
Look, you go to the moon, you can't breathe, you realize I shouldn't be here, man. You come to the West, you can't even pray properly.
Yeah.
There are people debating has Isha even started? Yeah, Salam, can you imagine how the early generations would have thought of that question? Has Isha even started? There's one guy saying, the cause of Isha is this, and yeah, Rob.
So one of the reasons why, it's his projection, yeah, and I see where he's coming from. Why Anbiya and the awliya Allah never came to these lands? Because you can't have istiqamah upon any routine.
Yeah. Constantly
disturbed. So somebody like yourself, let's say, who's working, in the summer, it's again near impossible for somebody like that to do tahajjud.
Yeah.
Because Fajr time's kicking in at 2 o'clock. If you're going to sleep at 10, 11, when are you going to sleep? When are you going to wake up for tahajjud? When are you going to go back to sleep? And find time to get to work? In winter, it's a lot easier. You've got longer nights.
Yeah.
But Ramadan is that one opportunity, for sure, everyone's going to be up for suhoor.
And suhoor is the time of?
And suhoor is the time of
tahajjud.
So the message to the community really is, don't lose out on the opportunity.
So if you're having sleeping problems, you're not alone. As Muslims, it's hard, like Hafiz mentioned. You cannot create that structure around our lifestyle, because it happens so that we are Muslims, and I guess we need to be Muslims before we are British, in that sense, or before we are Pakistani. Nowadays we see Muslims a lot of stuff, or any Kurimal road that we have in any city. It could be Birmingham.
No, I remember just mentioning that point.
Yeah.
High school, yeah, and you have your first day in. Your entire form's together. So the teacher's calling each student out and asking him, okay, introduce yourself, and they ask, what's your name, where are you from, and who are you? So they ask me, what's your name? So my name's Ozair. Okay. And who are you? And I go, I'm a Muslim. They laughed over me. And this was a Muslim school.
Allah.
Yeah, this was a private Muslim school. Let's not mention any names. But the head teacher was having a laugh. Like you said, you're a Muslim. They were expecting me to say, I'm a Pakistani. What's your background, or who are you? I'm like, I'm Muslim.
Inshallah. It's evident, isn't it, in the way your tarbiyat and the way you conduct yourself.
But we should remind ourselves that is our first and foremost
I just want to mention, because
identity.
Now people fail to... They're more British than they're Muslims.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Or
so when Shah said, I'm Muslim, they was like, oops.
I think there's a gap there. I think
but there's not a compromise. If you find yourself a person who tahajjud is very constrict on him, he can't do it, then there is the after fajr prayers, after sunrise, charged, duha, ishraq, make those prayers then.
Yeah.
The point is, I don't think we should just look, whoever reduces in nawafil, eventually will find reduction in his fard.
Yeah.
So pray our nawafil. And yesterday Hafiz Moeed gave a beautiful advice that he advises people in Ramadan, pray every unit of the prayer. Nafal, sunnah, fard, everything included.
Just to do them alone is a great ibadah. Yeah, rather than jumping for tahajjud and awabin.
Awabin, wow.
How many people do awabin?
In Ramadan, that's probably the most neglected.
Yeah.
Why? Because people thinking, you've had iftar, and then you're thinking, I got Taraweeh coming up anyway. Let me just sit back and relax. For Hufaz is different. We got to read our portion of the night, innit?
Yeah.
So we back out at awabin. Yeah, that's actually for Hufaz.
The pressure's on, basically.
The pressure's on.
And for whoever is watching, if you are a Hifz student, if you are leading Taraweeh, awabin is the perfect opportunity for you to practice your Taraweeh. Pray there. You've got 6 rak'ats if you want. 2, 2, 2, 2. Reading your quarters in there is easy. Reading your 8 rak'ats in there is easy.
So you have those pictures on social media. So it's an Arab guy who's had for his meal, and after iftar, all he's laying down flat, and you go boom.
Yeah.
Do you really think he's gonna get up and do it?
Exactly. So it does come down to what you have in your iftar.
Speaking of iftar, what am I having from iftar?
Go on.
Well, first things first. All of you Ruafza fans out there, it's a very delicious drink, isn't it? Especially after your
stop. Chain combo. I don't want to.
Oh, he's a Ruafza drinker.
I don't want to hear it.
I like it, but we don't. It's not like a Bengali thing. I only have it when I come to the mosque, to be honest.
Yeah.
But we have something called kisori. How do you explain kisori? It's a rice dish.
Okay.
You call it kichuri. You can call it something like that.
Kichuri.
Khichdi something. What do
Is that like lentils in rice?
Lentils in rice.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, khichdi.
It's
Khichdi
yellow.
for us,
It's
yeah,
yellow.
khichdi, yeah.
That, and we work on chickpeas on it, and we work on a salad. And that's the main thing our
Don't
guys
forget
will have.
the little achar that you have pickled.
Not really. Not really.
No,
Melons
no.
and
No?
watermelons if it's in season, but
Okay.
melons though.
So yeah,
Bengalis
so
love
if
melons.
we're talking about what we're having for iftar, if you're wondering, drinking
Rosa, yeah.
excess in dairy, it's dairy mainly. It's
Okay.
the fact that you're having all this dairy, and milk is very filling as well, which is good.
Mm.
But at the same time, if that's what your iftar mainly consists of, you need more nutritional benefit than something like a glass of guasa.
Yeah.
What I would recommend.
I heard in Arabic a speaker, he said, "Why is milk so filling?"
Mm,
Because when Nabi Sallallahu drank it,
mm,
Allahumma barik lana fihi wa zidna. Oh Allah, put barakah in it and increases in it.
mm.
And because of dua of Nabi Sallallahu, whoever drinks even a little bit of milk, he finds so much nourishment, so much filling
Yeah.
from that. Subhanallah.
So what I recommend is to those who are looking to diet outside or during Ramadan. What I wouldn't recommend is to get some sort of plan to lose weight, or sorry, not to lose weight, to gain muscle, to develop your muscle, because you're fasting. Like, don't be too harsh on yourself. You're fasting most of the day, and for those who are out there with a lifestyle to go to the gym and be gym rats, as they say, it's not like
Is that good to do whilst you're fasting? Because your muscles that you're trying to build need nutrition without fasting.
I wouldn't recommend it, but for those who are insisting on it anyway, myself, I'll be doing it myself also. Dieting for the reason of losing weight for Ramadan is the perfect opportunity. Like you said yesterday, it's the pivot point for Ramadan. Remember, Ramadan, is the pivot point for us. So during that time, why not try it out for 30 days? Instead of going, crazy at iftar and crazy at suhoor, because you think, I've got such a short window, I'm going to be fasting. First and foremost, if you're sleeping most of the time, or during 8 hours or 7 hours, you're going to be asleep for half the time anyway. Especially what iftar nowadays is like, 6:30 today, around that time. Obviously, once the sunlight hours go forward 1 hour, it'll be a little bit later, but it's only an hour. And if we're looking at exercising, like you said, I would recommend it just before iftar, because after that you get all your nutritional benefits, and you're able to eat now.
That's where your intake is, yeah?
Exactly. And many people online in the community tend to go before Taraweeh. But so like you said, there's a 2-hour window now between that, so it will be a lot easier. Just bear in mind that everybody will do the same
Time
thing.
is really short, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah.
By the time you have your iftar, it's 7.
Yeah.
By 8, you've got an hour window.
Yeah.
Quite tight.
There's
I know
also-
a few friends that go
Mm.
before suhoor.
That's
So
that's
just-
my plan also. So if you have that time, like for me myself, I'm off work. I managed to get the time off work. For me myself, I would be looking to go before suhoor.
It'll be a lot
Because
quiet.
It'll be a lot quieter.
Mhm.
Number one, number two, you'll be able to drink water to recompensate for your.
I was going to touch on this hydration wise. There's a lot of people who drink excess amount of water iftar. Is there danger in that? Is there issue in that?
I guess there is always an.
They feel like I need to compensate for the whole day that I haven't
So
drunk
if we're
water.
talking about excess, we come back to this fact of gluttony. Now we think water is so beneficial. Surely so much of it can't be bad for us. But then you realize you can't move afterwards. So I guess there is a downfall, isn't it? So in terms of excess, my mum always says, I don't know if she got it from someone else or it's her own saying, but I'll treat it as my mum saying. And she says that too much of anything is poison.
Yeah.
That's the same. Because it could be money, it could be water as we're talking about, it could be food, consumption in anything, overconsumption, excess consumption, it is always a danger.
You can start off with the blessing of Allah, but have too much of it and you start to become the opposite. Like you can have food as a blessing, but then when you start to excess, inna Allah la yuhibbul musrifin.
Yeah.
Now you've gone into areas where Allah's not even happy with you.
So if
my,
we're talking,
my water intake is, I'll have about 2-3 glasses with my iftar, and then when I go to Taraweeh,
Throughout Taraweeh. Yeah.
whilst I'm reciting or whether I'm Sami at that point, get about 3 glasses within that 2 hour. So that's my 5, 6, 7 glasses of water.
I'd recommend something of this size. This is only a litre, but if you drink this from the time of iftar to Taraweeh ends, refill it 1 litre. That's 2 litres down the hatch. Recommended intake is about 2.5 litres
For
for a day.
a day.
Yeah, but
Isn't
that's
it
because
7 glasses of water?
Then-
something like that.
it's around 2.5.
Something just flashed to my mind. We mentioned milk. There's an ayah in the Quran that gives a beautiful lesson about milk. Allah says, وَإِنَّ لَكُمْ فِي الْأَنْعَامِ لَعِبْرَةً.
Subhanallah.
In the cattle, there's a lesson for everyone. نُسْقِيكُم مِمَّا فِي بُطُونِهَا مِنْ بَيْنِ فَرْثٍ وَدَمٍ لَبَنًا خَالِصًا سَائِغًا لِلشَّارِبِينَ. That between the filth and the excrement in the belly of the cow comes such a pure, filling, quench-thirsting liquid. And it's interesting, Allah used the word khalis, like ikhlas, sincerity. So if you have sincerity, if you are khalis for the sake of Allah, then regardless of the odds against you, whether you're in a British climate, Western climate, or a Kufri climate, everything around is against you, Allah can bring you out labanan khalisan sa'igan lisharibin, even if you're surrounded by filth.
It's interesting
Just
to talk about
flash to my
ikhlas. Nowadays, ikhlas should be built over a long time. It's one of those. It's like a reputation. Ikhlas is not. It's something you can gain, but I think for Ramadan it's not prioritized. So I think for Ramadan, many people you'll be surprised, they actually struggle with spirituality during Ramadan, especially in a Western climate, because during Ramadan, you don't have that time, number one, and number two, because you have other priorities on your list, Ramadan unfortunately will fall below all of them. And so in terms of spirituality, Hafiz Zubair mentioned yesterday, doing things like praying all your sunnahs, and I think one of the things we could add to that is ikhlas. Because with ikhlas, it's the act of, as mentioned in the Hadith, praying as though you can see Allah. And as if you cannot, as though Allah can see you when you're praying. And I did not see that during Taraweeh today, specifically where I was. The shortcuts, the 8 rakahs people, but we don't have an issue with that. The issue is that even if you're praying 8 rakahs, 2 rakahs, 4 rakahs, pray it as if it's your final prayer. Because Ramadan, Taraweeh is only there for 1 month. Who knows if you'll make it for the next one?
One of our teachers, Shaykh Ashraf, before every salah he would say, Sallu salata muwaddi'. Pray the prayer of someone who's saying goodbye.
Allah.
He would bring in his prayers like that.
Guys, we've been, I think it's about 50 odd minutes, almost an hour.
50 odd minutes.
Yeah.
So to conclude,
concluding with suhoor, what's your advice on that?
So for suhoor, I definitely recommend, number one, water as a drink. I wouldn't. People go for lassi because it fills you up. The classic yogurt milkshake. For example, yes. I don't personally go for it. The reason is because
with my experience, I've noticed you don't feel thirst throughout the day.
Yes, it's a very good way of inhibiting your thirst, but at the same time, it's just inhibiting the feeling.
I like his choice of words. He said inhibit. So he didn't actually quench your thirst.
It doesn't quench your thirst.
You've just hidden it.
You've just hidden it. It's like you have a naked person. For example, you put some clothes on him, or you put a sheet in front of him. He might still be naked though. In reality, he might still think he's naked. So in your mind, you're kind of, I guess, convincing.
Is Sahri though the best time to catch up on your water intake, or
no.
is having it throughout all
I
the way?
think throughout is the best option. The reason is, of all the third opinions that I got, second opinions that I got, they recommend to continue, that window that you have from iftar to suhoor, have water throughout that time. And one thing I'd also recommend is for suhoor, you've seen many people, there's videos online where they go crazy with jugs of water. And no, they're all full. But it's not helping anybody. You're just going to need to use the toilet when you're asleep.
And they fall asleep and don't pray Fajr.
Exactly. So this is a very toxic thing. And I think one thing, if we're talking about exercise as well, when you're exercising, you're naturally dehydrated. And I always carry a bottle with me in the gym or when I'm working out. One thing I would not recommend to conclude, for those who are looking to build some sort of diet or some sort of physical, structure or lose weight even, Ramadan is one of the best times to do it. During suhoor, before suhoor or before iftar, when you're doing it, try, or obviously before iftar you can't have the water. Before suhoor, you naturally feel that thirst, and it will make it easier to consume water. Okay. But I would not recommend like the classic where you chug a whole. There's memes online where people get a whole bottle and they chug it down. At the end of the day, they're burping. They're gonna need the toilet whilst you're asleep. You're disturbing your sleep as well. So during sleep, we advised. I'd recommend. We didn't really give a recommendation. I'd recommend taking a nap where you can. Power naps are actually a good option. Ustad Yassin has told us about this option. Many people don't consider power naps because they think, what is 45 minutes going to do? One sleep cycle is actually lasts for 45 minutes. So if you manage to sleep for just 45 minutes,
you can feel like you slept.
You can feel like you slept.
Up to 2
My
hours.
mum actually talks to me about this and she hates it because when I go home, I will knock out. And then I'll wake up a few minutes later and she says, Turasa, Sutta, how do you say, you've taken a little nap and now you're fresh. And I'll be fresh for the next 4 hours. So it works. Power naps are very successful in giving you that energy back.
That can work for some people, not for all.
Not for all. I wouldn't recommend
somebody
for all,
who's in that mindset like yourself, who's gymming and protein shakes and all this stuff, and for somebody like that, who's tapped into that psyche of his brain, for him he can snap in and snap out of it.
Of course, yeah.
But for general people, I think it's going to take quite an effort.
Of course, yeah. But again, if it comes back to the psyche element, what's Joe Rogan mentioned this on his podcast, the discomfort of being uncomfortable is greater than the uncomfort itself, the discomfort itself. So if you do not go into things that you have not tried before, you'll actually be more upset with yourself. You'll be more disappointed. So why not try it if it doesn't work?
They say if you want something you never had, you gotta do something you never did.
Exactly. And I think one thing to conclude, inshallah, is that if you are exercising, try to limit it. The main focus of Ramadan is spirituality. It should not be to try to maximize, your physicality, but it has to be up there, I think. Your mind and your body and your physicality are all connected. And once you emphasize on one spirituality specifically, you'll find that most people drop off on the other ones. When people focus on the physicality side, they'll drop off on the spirituality and mentality. So the aim of the game is, so if you're looking at it physically like this, spirituality is one here, it will go up, and mentality and physicality will stay here. And then other people will focus on mentality, they have exams and so on, and physicality, it will go up, spirituality will remain here. The aim of the game is not to set your standards so high during Ramadan. The aim of the game is to bring them all up a level, because at the end of the day, small steps are better than none. During Ramadan, we shouldn't look to do a full U-turn, because at the end of the day, that's not sustainable. Actually, if we're looking about dieting, I used to do this very extremely. I used to get yogurts, protein shakes, and I used to count calories. It's kind of a thing where you feel uncomfortable in your body. It's kind of body dysmorphia, kind of feeling that you have. To get out of that, what you just need to consider is you can have what you'd like. I'm not encouraging anybody to not have their mum's food, samosa, pakode. Just have less. Well, that's all you need to do. And in a world where we're so focused on consuming more, the way we can focus on that is by actually consuming less. And luxuries in life, we always want to add. We want to add to everything we have. You see a house and you say, okay, I'd like that house now. You see a car that you have and your current car is better, I'd like to have that car. We're always looking to add more and more and more. But in fact, the biggest luxury is when we take away. And last thing to conclude, I'm a water supremacist, as I mentioned before. Drink water as much as you can during suhoor and iftar, during your window, for the sake of hydration. And also you'll find that you'll get less headaches. You'll guess, today I had a very bad headache actually. And after I recompensed, my water intake and I rehydrated myself, I was fine. But you're going to get that time.
A lot of people will feel that day one. That dehydration.
Day one, it will be terrible.
It's always going to be there.
So stick with agua, as Cristiano Ronaldo says.
Agua?
Portuguese. Agua. Agua is water in Spanish as well, actually.
Oh.
So, have you seen that video where he's got a Coca-Cola
I thought
can?
you were seeing the Egyptian. Yeah.
Aywa.
Aqua.
No.
So the water is always called aqua water, yeah?
Aqua water, yeah.
So in Egyptian we call it agua.
Agua.
I don't know, but maybe it's come from there.
No, I don't know where it comes from exactly, but aim of the game is prioritize, stay fit and
stay healthy.
Understand that physicality, spirituality and mentality,
Intellect.
they're all intellect. You can't live with one, focusing on one, because you'll find that the other ones, and then you'll come on this cycle we talked about yesterday. You're like what we call what's the body temperature, homeostasis. You find yourself regulating from really hot to really cold in terms of iman. That's like really good iman, really bad iman. We need to find that middle point, and that's why Islam comes.
From one of the subjects inshallah we'll be discussing in this month is finding that balance in life, deen and dunya. Physicality, spirituality. Some bits you touched on. You also touched on sincerity. A lot of subjects I intentionally held back and have not elaborated or picked on, so that today's conversation could continue to flow. But many more subjects like this to come.
Sure.
I would request and reach out to the viewers. We have started a new channel on YouTube by the name of Pursuit for Happiness. So if inshallah you could share the message, subscribe, and let's give ourselves a target between ourselves. Let's try to get like 500.
Yeah.
500 subscribers in this month at least.
Clip the videos that we've made, so that because we have short attention span nowadays. Clip the videos, put them on TikTok. So the podcast is going to be quite long. How long is it now?
An hour now, I guess.
About an hour. Nobody's going to sit here for an hour during Ramadan, but we can
feel free to clip it,
feel free
extract
to clip
things,
it,
share it.
Yeah.
الدال على الخير كفاعله. The one who indicates towards khair is like the one who did it in the first place.
SubhanAllah.
So that reward is waiting for everyone, inshallah.
And share the message on all your family, friends, groups and stuff. Get as many subscribers and likes. In fact, my technician who sat behind the screen was also mentioning, if you can get people to comment. So whatever you're listening to, share your comments.
Yes.
What you think of whatever we had discussed.
Let's boost the halal algorithm.
Yeah,
Any comments welcome, but فليقل خيرا أو ليصمت.
Only yes.
Let him say good or be silent.
Or even suggestions as in what subjects you would want us to discuss.
Yeah.
And give a Quranic response. What the Sharia, what the Sunnah would describe for us.
And there will be social media pages in this name as well. Coming forward, inshallah. Links will be shared, inshallah.
That's the final messages. Revive the Sunnah. وما علينا
إلا البلاغ.
Assalamu alaikum.
السلام عليكم.